Hey, in my sport touring rental company, my customers fell into three groups. Now, keep in mind, it was a vacation business, so the majority of the riders had a motorcycle at home, and they were renting my motorcycles to ride the great twisty roads of California. Group one, I would say these were the sport touring enthusiasts, riders who rented motorcycles in distant places, sometimes 2 and 3 times a year, eager to ride any kind of road, the gnarlier the better. When they came in my shop, they'd look at the tires, eyeballed my shop, asked a couple of questions, jumped on the bike, and headed out for their 300 to 400 miles a day, all on different twisty roads, not to be seen again for another 10 to 15 days. Never a hint of nervousness. The second group, these were accomplished sport touring riders, but didn't have much experience renting motorcycles or riding new roads in unfamiliar mountain ranges, especially those unique to California. Now, these riders tended to be a little bit nervous about riding a motorcycle for which they would be responsible. And it was oftentimes one they were not familiar with. And I recall the same feeling. First time I rented a street glide, I ended up returning it for an RT after a few days. But I had that same nervousness being on a different bike, not knowing what to expect, renting a motorcycle for this first time. But it goes away literally within a few miles. Now, group three, these were the average or typical riders, some with years of experience though, just not in a sport touring environment. Some had multiple motorcycles. What was interesting about this group is that their nervousness was beyond just riding a different motorcycle. I attribute it to a sort of a cognitive dissonance, getting ready to do something that they really didn't want to do. I could see these riders had two concerns. One was the idea of riding a strange motorcycle. The other was that they knew they were uncomfortable on twisty roads. Now, how did I know that? As a small operation, I personally checked out 95% of all the customers who came and went. I also checked them back in when they returned. The conversations, the observations, dealing with damage when something did happen, how they explained it. There were so many clues about their overall comfort with riding, especially in twisties. My point here is that you can have 10 years riding experience, but it's more like 1 year, 10 times. It was sort of like that. Fast forward to selling motorcycles, the same kind I had in my rental shop, sport touring bikes, Ducatis, BMWs, Triumphs. I observed something similar. So many riders never made the shift to understanding the motorcycle as a piece of sports equipment. That means their muscle memory, the response that kicks in for emergencies, was likely based on driving a car, not a motorcycle. You see, these survival reactions we have are much more about muscle memory, nervous system response errors, as opposed to mental errors. Now, too fast for conditions, that's a mental error. Squeezing the front brake too abruptly or failing to swerve in a clearly avoidable incident, but instead holding the brakes until they hit the obstacle they were trying to stop for. These are muscle memory errors. There are more of these. Counter steering to tighten your arc when already leaned over is a muscle memory error. Too much brake applied in trail braking, it's a muscle memory error. And that's why I created this course. The course uses a combination of theory, illustration, demonstration, and drills, which you absolutely should do. The drills lock in the muscle memory. Now, I've ridden on roads all over the US. I've been there before, where I was nervous, like before going on the tail of the Dragon, for example, or Highway 36 with the sign that says, twisties for the next 140 miles. Parts of Angeles Crest Highway, running along the ridge with steep drop-offs on both sides, and even Highway 250 in West Virginia, a very technical road that is full of surprises. There was one more aha moment when I was selling bikes. Now, there are riders who are very fast on the track, but when it comes to riding twisty roads, they were constrained because they rode them using racetrack lines. I have well over 100 track days plus several years racing experience. And most roads don't lend themselves to racetrack lines. Race lines are not the safest and fastest way around most twisty roads. And that's why you see dual sport bikes and sport touring motorcycles easily passing sport bikes on some of these twisties. Now, unless the bike is doing the other half of the reason for a race line, which is pinning the throttle on the subsequent straight. And I don't have to tell you why that's not a good idea, especially on a leader bike. And that's why you don't need race lines on the street. There's no need to maximize the speed on the following straight. With most bikes, you can get up to whatever speed you need to get up to without getting a perfect drive coming off the corner. So there's no reason for the race line. Now, the reason my customers had such a stellar safety record, 2 hospitalizations and 2.5 million miles, is because they applied certain principles when riding. Whether they could articulate them or not is beside the point. They learned them from years of riding, years of trial and error. And this course is here to enable new riders to gain those same skills and adopt the same principles in a fraction of the time. 5 modules, 25 lessons, including drills, and you can probably get through it all in a few weeks at a leisurely pace, including doing the drills real time. Click the link. You can take a look at what's covered in the course and make the decision if it makes sense for you. Just like any sport, it never hurts to spend some time on solid practice and refreshing our skills. I hope to see you on the other side.